Earlier in the year, we saw over 2.9 billion records stolen from national public data. This could include your full name, address, date of birth, phone number, and even your social security number, all being exposed on the internet for hackers to distribute however they see fit. All of us have either personally been a victim or know someone who's been a victim of financial fraud or losing an account or personal data online to these dangerous individuals at one time or another. But thankfully, with technology and security constantly changing, this also leads to things like Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura monitors your data everywhere online, including the dark web, to detect and alert you to potential identity theft, offering US citizens up to $5 million in identity theft insurance if the worst were to happen. With Aura, you can protect your and your loved one's data online. But if you're still not convinced, with my personal Seeking Answers link in the description, you can now receive a 2-week free trial to truly see what Aura can do to protect you. Simply go to aura.com/seekinganswers to try 2 weeks for free and protect yourselves now.
Having launched on April 1st, 1979, Nickelodeon was the first cable channel aimed primarily towards children, owned by Paramount, later spinning off to various other networks such as Nick Jr., Nicktoons and Teen Nick. It was throughout the 1990s and 2000s when its popularity really exploded. Nickelodeon was everywhere, entering the living rooms for most of our childhoods, entertaining us for many years. But sadly, this wasn't always to be, and it supposedly all came down to one man. It's also come to our attention that 93% of our viewers aren't subscribed, so please just take the time to click that subscribe button and make sure all notifications are on so you never miss an upload every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Dan Schneider was born on January 14th, 1966 in Memphis, Tennessee. He would grow up to star in minor roles in several films across the 1980s, and it was in 1986 when he landed the recurring part of Dennis Blunden in the sitcom Head of the Class, which spanned 5 seasons. 2 years later, Schneider co-hosted the Kids' Choice Awards, which is when he met Nickelodeon development executive Albie Hecht, and he began to appear in several cameos on shows that he was producing at the time. During this time, Schneider met food blogger Lisa Lillian, and the two would later get married and remain as such to this day. It was in 1993 when Hecht was now the head of Nickelodeon production, and he scooped up Schneider for a new idea. A comedy sketch show similar to Saturday Night Live but aimed towards children named All That. Schneider ended up writing the pilot, and it was so well received that he joined as the producer, executive producer and writer of the show. During his time there, many filed complaints against working with the man. Writers Christy Stratton and Jenny Kilgan claimed that they were forced to share a salary between them, which actually violated union regulations, though Schneider would later deny having anything to do with the salaries. They also claimed to have faced sexual harassment during the time with Nickelodeon, but Schneider would end up firing Stratton while Kilgan would soon quit due to their treatment. They weren't the only ones, however, who complained about the culture of misogyny in the workplace, as many other women came forward to state that Dan Schneider forced them to give him massages inside the studio. Lori Beth Denberg was 19 at the time and claimed that Schneider touched her inappropriately, attempted to initiate phone sex with her, and even showed her pornography and bestiality. She claimed that she would have sleepovers at his house where he would show her a video of a woman performing oral sex on a donkey, and the two would exchange massages while he played pornography on his computer. She claimed that when she hit 21, Schneider molested her and put his mouth on one of her breasts, though Dan would later deny these claims, calling them wildly exaggerated. Quote, "As I have previously stated, there were times, particularly in the early years of my career, that I made mistakes and exhibited poor judgment as a leader. If I did that with respect to Lori Beth, I sincerely apologise to her, but I cannot apologise for things I did not do." End quote. Schneider would also reportedly enter fits of rage or temper tantrums in the writing room, and this story was corroborated by Kel Mitchell, who claimed that he and Schneider once got into a disagreement, leading to the producer screaming at him. Allegedly, he also once brought a shotgun into the writing room just to scare one of them. Other stars such as Brian Hearn were dressed in inappropriate clothing for children and often forced to participate in disgusting antics for television. Quote, "I felt very exposed. What really made me uncomfortable was wearing leotards." End quote. He and the other African American actors also felt like they were sometimes used as racial stereotypes, particularly when Hearn was cast as a rapper known as Little Fetus, who would reference drug dealing and wearing a disturbing outfit to match his skin color. Quote, "I always did my best not to be a trooper, a complainer, because we knew being close to Dan would mean an extra level of success. It was important to be on his good side." End quote. Other actors Leon Frierson, Katrina Johnson, Giovanni Samuels, and Kyle Sullivan all claim to have been the subject of harsh treatment on set. Quote, "The show was filled with uncomfortable sketches." End quote. Dan Schneider left the writing room of all that after 4 seasons to focus on his next venture, The Amanda Show, but things weren't looking much better there either. Laurie Beth Denberg claims that due to the past between her and Dan, she was banned from the set. She also claimed that she showed extreme concern for the star of the show and expressed this to Nickelodeon executives at the time, but no further action was taken. Born in 1986, Amanda Bynes began acting professionally at the age of 7 in commercials, but her true calling came when a Nickelodeon talent scout discovered her in a club and brought her to the attention of Dan Schneider. Bynes gained fame in The Amanda Show in 1999 when she was just 13, earning 4 Kids' Choice Awards and being nominated for 2 Young Artist Awards as well, before going on to star in several movies in the coming years. However, behind closed doors, things weren't as wholesome. It was reported that Amanda spent a lot of time with Schneider in his dressing room and they were incredibly close, spouting rumours of inappropriate behaviour from the producer. Things weren't helped when there were certain sketches in the show itself, such as an actor resembling Dan approaching Amanda and claiming that she needed something in her belly before handing her her very own baby. This only added fuel to the fire of a rumour that Dan Schneider actually impregnated Amanda Bynes at a young age and then forced her to terminate the child, though there is no evidence of this. There was also a character named Penelope Taint, also played by Bynes, which allegedly was a deliberate reference to the male genitalia. Schneider supposedly told the writers that he would claim that the word was a reference to mean tainted, and that he wanted to keep the real meaning of the name a secret, asking the writers to not tell anyone. Supposedly, Amanda attempted to emancipate herself from her parents' care and gain independence, which failed. While Schneider claimed to have supported her through this and even sent someone to take care of her, the speculation is that it badly affected her career, which ended with her severing ties with Nickelodeon. Over the years, Amanda would turn to substance abuse, mental health problems, and several legal issues. In 2012, she was charged with driving under the influence, receiving 3 years probation. The following year, she was charged with reckless endangerment and the possession of marijuana, though she would later admit to also abusing cocaine, MDMA, and Adderall. She also allegedly started a small fire in the driveway of a complete stranger. Not long after, Amanda Bynes was put under a 72-hour mental health evaluation. In October 2014, she accused her father of sexual abuse, but she would later retract the story. Quote, "The microchip in my brain made me say those things, but he's the one that ordered them to microchip me." End quote. By 2018, it seemed like Amanda was finally beginning to turn her life around, having been sober for 4 years. Quote, "I'm really ashamed and embarrassed with the things I said. I can't turn back time, but if I could, I would. And I'm so sorry to whoever I hurt and whoever I lied about, because it truly eats away at me." End quote. Unfortunately, it didn't last, as on March the 20th, 2023, she was put under another 72-hour psychiatric hold, no showing in all that reunion, citing thoughts of self-harm. The once beloved child star had such a troubling life, and the majority of people stemmed it down to one man. But what truly happened will forever remain a mystery. Things didn't stop with Schneider, as Jason Michael Handy, who was also a crew member on set of The Amanda Show, became a predator. He was a production assistant in charge of walking the child actors around the set and directing them where to go. He was often described as being, quote, "a normal member of the crew," end quote, even having a cameo appearance on the show every now and then as well. However, one of the children, Brandy, soon became a victim. She was 11 at the time and began exchanging emails with Jason, which seemed innocent at first and didn't raise any particular questions from her parents, especially considering her mother would initially observe the contents of these messages. However, months later, Brandy suddenly burst into tears, shut down the computer and fled into her room. Upon investigation, Jason had sent her an explicit photo of himself, along with a note stating that he was thinking of her. Brandy's mother chose to not press charges, but she did decide to withdraw her daughter completely from the television industry that day. Jason Hardy was later arrested for kissing and molesting a 9-year-old girl. He was convicted of child abuse and possessing child pornography containing over 10,000 indecent images of children. Upon investigation, his diary contained entries that read, quote, "I am a paedophile, full blown. I even struggle on a day-to-day basis of how I can find a victim to rape if I have to," end quote. He was sent to prison and sentenced to just 6 years. It wouldn't stop there, as 36-year-old Nickelodeon animator Ezel Chanel was arrested and sentenced to 7 years for committing sexual acts on a 14-year-old boy. The child stated that this took place during a visit to Nickelodeon Studios, where he also tried to show him some pornography on his computer. It was in 2004 when Dan Schneider created a spin-off from The Amanda Show named Drake and Josh, featuring the titular duo, but unfortunately the stories would only continue. Born in 1986, Drake Bell began acting at the age of just 5 and would have minor roles over the years in Home Improvement, Jerry Maguire and Seinfeld. But he gained a lot of popularity in the aforementioned The Amanda Show, showing a lot of chemistry alongside Josh Peck. Unfortunately, it was around this time when actor and dialogue coach Brian Peck began to show a lot of interest in Drake, who was only 15 at the time. Bell's father was immediately suspicious of Peck's behaviour, but once he vented his concerns to Nickelodeon executives, he was accused of being homophobic, describing Peck as just, quote, "a little touchy-feely guy," end quote. And Drake's father's concerns were completely dismissed. Peck tried to persuade his way into being cast as the father on Drake and Josh, and over time, he began sexually assaulting Drake Bell. Quote, "Think of the worst stuff that someone can do to somebody as a sexual assault and that will answer your question. It became worse and worse and worse and worse. I was just trapped," end quote. Over time, Drake confided in his girlfriend's mother about what was going on, leading to a sting operation, with Peck confessing over the phone, resulting in Brian finally being apprehended on August the 19th, 2003. Though since Drake was a minor at the time, his identity was kept hidden from the public. Brian Peck pled no contest but was sentenced to 16 months in prison and had to register as a sex offender for life. Despite this, once released, he still managed to find work again and was even hired by Disney on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. However, despite the stories regarding the man, Drake Bell did confess that the only adult from Nickelodeon to reach out to him once the story broke was Dan Schneider. Bell was traumatized by what happened, and he claimed that this pushed him down a self-destructive path which led to his own list of legal issues. In 2010, Drake Bell was charged for driving under the influence, and on December the 21st, 5 years later, it would only continue as he was arrested again for the same reason, being sentenced to 4 days in jail and receiving 4 years probation, as well as attending an alcohol education program, though Bell only served 1 day for good behavior. It was in August 2020 when his ex-girlfriend Melissa Lingerfeld accused Drake of verbal and physical abuse during their past relationship, as well as accusing him of inappropriate behaviour towards underage girls, all of which Bell completely denied. On June the 4th the following year, he was arrested again on charges of attempted endangering of children and disseminating matter harmful to juveniles. A young girl claimed to have established a relationship with Drake several years prior when she was only 15 at a concert of his while he was 31. Drake initially pleaded not guilty, but later changed this, while his accuser claimed that he sexually assaulted her while she was a minor and only didn't rape her because she was on her menstrual cycle. Drake was sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and was not allowed to have any contact with the victim. Bell did defend himself and claimed that he stopped all communication once he learned of her age, and that no sexual images were ever exchanged and nothing physical ever happened. In regards to his guilty plea, he stated, quote, "I felt that this was the best way to get this over quickly and for everyone involved to be able to move on," end quote. Drake did confess to making an inappropriate comment towards the end of their conversations, which he admitted that he regretted and did apologise for, but maintained that nothing physical ever happened like she was claiming. There was also a lot of speculation regarding the victim admitting to have lied to Drake about her age, but there's no actual evidence or source of this taking place anywhere, and it seems to be merely online rumours. However, Belle's lawyer admitted that the conversations did continue even after he was made aware of her age.
Let me ask you this.
Yes,
please. Saying he didn't know how old she was when he first started engaging in conversations with her, either at a concert or by telephone. He didn't know that her age.
At the start, he may not have known. He did learn of the age at a later time, Your Honor, and that is why he's accepting the plea. So the state and defense would agree the age was mentioned during those chats, Your Honor.
The victim claimed to have been sexually assaulted inside a hotel room. Upon investigation, other adults were reportedly in the room with them and testified that the two were never left alone at any moment and nothing could have possibly happened. Furthermore, their conversation history was searched and no sexual images were ever found. It was 2005 when Zoey 101 joined the list of shows that Schneider had created, starring pop singer Britney Spears' younger sister Jamie Lynn. However, the show was suddenly cancelled 3 years later when Spears fell pregnant at the age of 17, with again many accusing Schneider of fathering her baby. Even after she gave birth, some were convinced that the child bore a strong resemblance to the man, but nothing is for certain. Alexa Nicholas, who played Nicole, also claimed that during her time on the show she, quote, did not feel safe, end quote, around Schneider, and that she was often pressured into wearing revealing clothing. Though the issues are now resolved, at the time Alexa and Jamie did not get along, which often caused friction on set. Allegedly, when she approached executives with her concerns over Jamie's behaviour, it led to Schneider screaming at her. On one occasion, she claimed to have been taken alone into Jamie's trailer, where Britney Spears verbally abused her. This led to Alexa fleeing the trailer to her mother in tears, and producers, including Schneider, attempted to bribe her to stay quiet about this by providing her with PlayStations. As a result, Alexa was removed from the show and replaced by another actress. Jamie Lynn would end up writing about this incident in her memoir, and Britney Spears would later apologise to Alexa for her behaviour. Quote, I apologise for my ignorance for yelling at you when I obviously had no idea what was really going on, end quote. Another spin-off from Drake and Josh came iCarly, featuring Miranda Cosgrove as well as bringing back Jerry Traynor. Allegedly, the latter never got along with Dan Schneider and often conflicted with him. In some behind-the-scenes clips, Traynor can be seen reacting awkwardly or negatively towards Schneider, and on some occasions subtly trying to possibly protect the child actors by moving them away from the man himself, as well as creepy moments between him and the lead Miranda. Though this, of course, is merely speculation. In 2010, Schneider launched Victorious, kickstarting the careers of Ariana Grande and Victoria Justice, which also led to a spin-off called Sam and Cat 3 years later. By this point, there were so many complaints regarding Schneider's inappropriate behaviour that he was forbidden from interacting with the cast on set, and he had to only do so through written notes. Though Schneider would later deny this and claimed that he was simply far too busy to have been on the set very often. Despite this, he continued on with Nickelodeon, creating Henry Danger and reuniting with Kel Mitchell on Game Shakers. But everything was about to come crashing down for the man. It was in 2017 when Jennette McCurdy, who had starred in iCarly and its subsequent spin-off, decided to retire from acting, claiming that she had felt ashamed of 90% of her entire resume. Quote, I never got the chance to be cast in a project I was proud to be part of. Now I have a better chance of making things I'm proud of than getting cast in things I'm proud of, end quote. She had previously not turned up to the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards a few years earlier, which sparked a lot of confusion at the time. She suddenly removed all previous social media posts and made all of her videos online completely private. She would later claim that she was forced into acting by her mother and was used as her family's primary source of income. She stated that she was ashamed of her roles and had to seek therapy in the late 2010s. She would also decline to reprise her part as Sam in the 2021 reboot of iCarly. It was also alleged that after her mother passed away, she was dissuaded by Nickelodeon executives from taking antidepressants, as they feared that she would commit suicide. She also suffered from anorexia and bulimia, which wasn't helped by her character in Sam and Cat eating excessive amounts of food as a running joke in several episodes. It was in 2018 when the Me Too movement started to gain a lot of traction, which led to Viacom conducting an investigation on Dan Schneider, interviewing dozens of employees based on the reports over the years. Though no reports of sexual misconduct were ever found, there were several stories of Schneider being verbally abusive and incredibly controlling. It was now when director and producer Mary Robertson began to notice a lot of inappropriate sexual scenes in several of the shows that Schneider had produced over the years. Some of which included children in Victorious making penis references, Jamie Lynn Spears getting liquid squirted onto her face in Zoey 101, as well as an episode of Logan hiding a camera inside a teddy bear to spy on the girls in their dorm rooms, and even Ariana Grande squirting water all over herself or her feet in Sam and Cat. Dan Schneider supposedly has a foot fetish, only adding to further speculation, especially with him posting photos online of the actress's feet as well. It was now when she partnered with Business Insider, and Kate Taylor contacted the actors and crew members who worked with Schneider over the years to conduct a full investigation. It was now on March the 26th, 2018 when Nickelodeon decided to part ways with Schneider and his company Schneider's Bakery due to the findings of the initial investigation. As the search continued, Emma Schwartz reported that many of those involved who responded to them were relieved to finally be able to share their negative experiences working with Nickelodeon, while others were still too afraid to come forward. Dan Schneider himself was approached to appear on camera, but he declined. Despite this, after 2 years away from Nickelodeon, the New York Times reported that Schneider seemed, quote, set on returning to television and reintroducing his brand of comedy to new audiences, end quote. He lost over 100 pounds, and by June 2021, he claimed to have written an ambitious and very different TV pilot to a different network, which was aimed at a much more adult audience. By 2022, further allegations came forward, including Schneider being guilty of gender discrimination, but former Nickelodeon executive Russell Hicks denied there ever being any kind of sexual innuendos in any of his programs, stating that every day on set, the parents, friends and staff members all watched and approved every single piece of footage and every single joke. Schneider apologized for his outbursts, claiming that he just held a high standard as the showrunner, and the stress of producing over 40 episodes a year got the better of him, but he denied ever sexualizing any children in any of his productions. Quote, I apologise to anybody that I ever put in that situation. Additionally, I apologise to the people who were walking around Video Village or wherever they happened, because there were lots of people there who witnessed it who also may have felt uncomfortable. So I owe them an apology as well, end quote. It was on August the 9th when Jennette McCurdy wrote her memoir detailing an abusive working environment. Though she doesn't reference Schneider by name, she refers to an individual as the creator being abusive, which most believe to have been Dan himself. It also turned out that when Jennette left Nickelodeon, she was offered a $300,000 goodbye on the condition that she would not publicly discuss her experience with the network, which she turned down. Furthermore, she also appeared on the podcast of Josh Peck, who has always denied witnessing any sexual misconduct from Dan Schneider or inappropriate behaviour. This podcast episode was never released as Jennette claimed to have felt uncomfortable during the recording, requesting that Josh not release it. While he obliged, he attempted to get her on for another one, which led to her blocking him, leading to further online speculation. Madison Shipman, who played Kenzie on Game Shakers, also defended Schneider and claimed that she, quote, had nothing but positive things to say, end quote, in regards to working with him. It was between March 17th and 18th, 2024 when the documentary Quiet on Set was released in 4 parts, with a 5th being put out on April the 7th, detailing all of the aforementioned stories of abuse and toxicity during various people's time with Nickelodeon. Mark Summers, who had previously hosted Double Dare, was actually approached to be in the film and initially agreed, but claimed that he was misled into believing that the documentary was about Nickelodeon in general. As soon as he saw some of the footage, he walked off set and claimed that he had felt ambushed. He also denied ever having met Dan Schneider in the past, as that was after his time there. However, the directors maintained that they had informed everyone of the film's intentions from the very beginning. Though Alexa Nicholas and Raquel Lee, who voiced Nubia on The Proud Family, were both disappointed to find out that it was being produced for investigation discovery, and admitted that they wouldn't have participated if they had been aware, claiming that the story should have been put on a, quote, more serious, credible platform. End quote. This documentary led to Dan Schneider filing a lawsuit against Warner Brothers, Discovery, Sony Pictures Television, and the directors for defamation. He then put out a video in which he apologized for certain actions, but maintained his innocence regarding the sexual allegations. Quote, "Watching Quiet on set was very difficult, facing my past behaviors, some of which were embarrassing and I regret, and I definitely owe some people some pretty strong apologies." End quote. He admitted, quote, "mistakes and poor judgment," end quote, during his time with Nickelodeon, but claimed that the reactions left in the wake of the documentary left him, quote, "no choice but to take legal action against the people behind it," end quote. Drake had previously turned down appearing in another documentary before, but admitted that after filming the interview for this one, he checked himself into rehab. This was the first time that Drake was publicly named as Brian Peck's victim, and the directors even petitioned for the court to publicize various letters from other celebrities who had defended the abuser, telling Variety, quote, "we didn't know what we would find, but what the letters allow us to do is get a window into who in Hollywood was supporting this man during a time that he had been convicted as a child sex offender," end quote. This included the likes of Alan Thicke, James Marsden, and Boy Meets World stars Ryder Strong and Will Friedle. Friedle and Strong were both approached to comment on the documentary, but neither responded. They began to receive a lot of criticism on their podcast, even more so as they were in their mid-20s at the time that they had defended Peck in court. The pair claimed to have not known the full story of the evidence and just simply believed that their friend wasn't capable of such crimes, expressing deep regret. However, even after he was convicted, Will Friedle got Peck a part with him in the movie Everything You Want in 2005. Drake would publicly admit that he has since reconciled with Ryder Strong, but claimed to have never received an apology from Friedle, despite working together on Ultimate Spider-Man. Furthermore, Ben Savage, who played the lead in Boy Meets World, has reportedly also cut ties with the pair for unknown reasons. Tom DeSanto was an executive producer on the first X-Men film, to which Peck actually had a cameo. DeSanto also wrote a letter of support in the past, but he too showed his regret. Quote, "I want to personally apologize to Drake and his family, and emphatically state that had I been fully informed of all the accusations, my support would have been absolutely withheld," end quote. Joanna Kearns and directors Beth and Rich Carell all expressed regret in their letters of support. In response, Drake stated, quote, "I don't really harbour any anger, it's just confusion," end quote. In response to the documentary, Nickelodeon released a statement. Quote, "Now that Drake Bell has disclosed his identity as the plaintiff in the 2004 case, we are dismayed and saddened to learn of the trauma he has endured, and we commend and support the strength required to come forward," end quote. Though in regards to Schneider, the network stated that they were unable to, quote, "corroborate or negate allegations of behaviours from productions decades ago. Our highest priorities are the well-being and best interests not just of our employees, casts and crew, but of all children, and we have adopted numerous safeguards over the years to help ensure we are living up to our own high standards and the expectations of our audience," end quote. They would also tell Variety, quote, "We investigate all formal complaints as part of our commitment to fostering a safe and professional workplace environment free of harassment or other kinds of inappropriate conduct," end quote. However, Drake himself described their response as empty and something that was, quote, "written by obviously a legal representative," end quote. Devin Werkheiser, who had starred on Nickelodeon's Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, caused a lot of controversy by cracking jokes about the documentary.
"We told you never to speak about that. Get back in your hole, Daniel, and give me your holes." Sorry, we shouldn't joke about this. We really shouldn't.
This is awful. Why are we doing this?
Because this is about us. Listen, our set was not like that. And no, it's fucking awful. The Drake Bell shit is that's crazy to hear. That is fucked, man. Oh, so y'all were in on it. Oh god. Damn. Wow. I'm not talking about this anymore. Not talking about this anymore. No. Guys, we can't joke like this. Jesus. Guys, we're sometimes humor helps us move through things, you know?
100%.
Though he did later apologise for worsening the pain of the actors and said, quote, "I was being an idiot today," end quote. Josh Peck faced some criticism online as he didn't speak publicly on the subject, particularly to show support for his former co-star. This only added fuel to the online backlash as Drake hadn't been invited to his wedding a few years prior. However, Drake did confirm that Josh reached out to him privately and was incredibly supportive. Josh did end up speaking out, saying that, quote, "children should be protected," end quote, and that the documentary proved that the television industry needs to have a necessary change. Nancy Sullivan, who played Drake's on-screen mother, was heartbroken to discover what he was going through behind closed doors, and also showed her support. The documentary also opened the door for others to come forward with their own experiences. Amber Frank, who played Taylor in The Haunted Hathaways, claimed that when they used to work on the show in the studio, sometimes child pornography would appear on the Nickelodeon computers, but it was never reported.
One of the horrifying things that happened in my experience with Nickelodeon was when Nickelodeon sent computers over to production when we were starting filming the show, and when they were turned on, there was child porn on them. And nobody was held accountable. There was no investigation, never even found out where it came from or who was responsible for it.
An old episode of the Naked Brothers Band soon re-emerged, which featured Ali D'Amico, who was only around 14 or 15 years old at the time, kissing a Frenchman, played by Jake Herzog, who was 21. Ali ended up speaking out about this, saying that she suffered severe PTSD due to the incident. She also claimed that when she was even younger, an adult female producer found out that she hadn't had her first kiss yet, before giving her one. However, not everyone had negative experiences working at Nickelodeon. Steve Burns, who was on Blue's Clues, was completely unaware of what had happened, as Nickelodeon's studio was based in Los Angeles, whereas Nick Jr. operated primarily in New York City. Quote, "I'm coming to it much the same as anyone else, with horror and heartbreak. It's just terrible to watch it unfold. I don't know what else to say other than that it's heartbreaking." End quote. Despite having an appearance in a singular episode and the Good Burger movie, Kenan Thompson claimed that Dan Schneider was barely involved with the Kenan and Kel show, and that most of the alleged abuse took place after he had already left Nickelodeon, but he still expressed his support for the victims. Quote, "My heart goes out to anyone that's been victimized or their families." End quote. Kenan urged for Nickelodeon to investigate these matters further, as the network was, quote, "supposed to be a safe place for kids." End quote. Melissa Joan Hart also spoke out about only having positive experiences with Nickelodeon, but admitted that she trusts the victims 100%, though it's worth noting that her programs were also filmed at a different studio to the others. Christopher Massey played Michael on Zoey 101, and his mother Angel spoke out to defend Dan Schneider, claiming that he boosted her son's career, and she even blamed one of the victims' parents for the allegations. Chris himself did speak out, requesting people to leave his mother alone. Quote, "My story will be told from me, not a parent, a friend, a co-worker, me." End quote. Matthew Underwood, who played Logan on the same show, had been sexually abused as a child and was also sexually assaulted by his agent when he was 19, which led to his early retirement from acting. Though he admitted to having a mostly positive experience working with Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider, he complimented his apology video for him taking accountability, as did Leon Frierson from All That, who commended Schneider for acknowledging his mistakes, while Alexa was disgusted, claiming that it should have been sent as a private apology instead. Quote, "I don't forgive Dan Schneider. That wasn't proper accountability. That was avoiding a lot of the main discussions that were mentioned in Quiet on Set. That was him playing the sympathy card, centering himself, playing the victim."
I don't even feel any remorse from him. He's not even crying. He's not even, I know everyone deals with their own emotions in their own way, but I don't feel anything from you, Dan. I don't feel a thing.
When someone doesn't personally come to you and apologize, it's not an apology. If you hear about it through other people, it's not really an apology, right? An apology is to the person that you hurt. That's what an apology is for. I would have appreciated if Dad apologized directly to me. He's a bully, a meanie, and impacted my life, right? Where's a phone call of an apology? How come you can do all of this? How can everyone do all of this but not reach out to the person that they hurt? End quote. Describing the interview, Brian Hearn stated, quote, "The thing about his interview as a whole is, I just thought it was funny. If I could be candid, Dan was an actor before all of this, and so I think that he brushed off some chops and gave us a nice performance. Where was all this apologizing when Jennette McCurdy's book came out?" End quote. Giovanni Samuels did admit that Schneider reached out to her before the documentary was released, asking her to provide a statement to defend him. Quote, "He was like, 'You had a good time on set, right? Right?' I told him I was terrified of him." End quote. Schneider would state,
"The main thing that I would change is how I treat people and everyone. I definitely at times didn't give people the best of me. I didn't show enough patience. I could be cocky and definitely overambitious. and sometimes just straight up rude and obnoxious, and I am so sorry that I ever was. I wish I could go back, especially to those earlier years of my career, and bring the growth and the experience that I have now and just do a better job.
Victoria Justice described her relationship with Dan Schneider as complex, as he had helped her rise to fame, to which she was forever grateful. However, she did concede that he had an ego, and once she heard him say that he owes some people an apology, she claimed that she is definitely one of those people. She also admitted that many of the jokes on her show were extremely inappropriate for children. Ariana Grande stated that she needed to reprocess her whole relationship with Nickelodeon with everything that was now coming to light. She and other cast members felt like the comedy constantly pushed the envelope. Upon realizing the potential true context of the humor, she became incredibly upset and now considered all of the child actors as survivors. Daniela Monet, who played Trina on the same show, detailed a positive experience on set, but did admit that there was a lot of sexualization in the writing. Once again, Schneider and other studio representatives maintained that all of the jokes were approved by several adults and parents and the Nickelodeon network itself.
All these jokes that you're speaking of, that the show covered over the past 2 nights, every one of those jokes was written for a kid audience because kids thought they were funny and only funny, okay? Now we have some adults looking back at them 20 years later through their lens, and they're looking at them and they're saying, oh, I don't think that's appropriate for a kid show. And I have no problem with that. If that's how anyone feels, let's cut those jokes out of the show, just like I would have done 20 years ago or 25 years ago.
Quote, everything that happened on the show Dan ran was carefully scrutinized by dozens of involved adults and approved by the network. If there was an actual problem with the scenes that some people now, years later, are sexualizing, they would be taken down, but they are not. They are aired constantly all over the world today still, enjoyed by both kids and parents. End quote. Despite this, several cast members claimed that during filming of sexually inappropriate scenes, the kids were quiet and confused, not understanding the adult humor, while the grown-ups in the studio were laughing. Not long after, Alexa founded a protest organization named Eat Predators, in which they sold anti-Nickelodeon merchandise, which received a lot of criticism, accusing her of profiting off of her co-star's trauma. She did defend herself, however. Quote, Nickelodeon was my childhood trauma too, by the way. I got exploited as a child while in a toxic work environment, and that company made millions of dollars off of us kids. I want to see people supporting me and others rocking a Nickelodeon t-shirt. You watch that doc and attack me. End quote. Leaving the children who were forced to be quiet on set, as well as the audience who grew up watching these seemingly heartfelt and wholesome television shows, forever seeking answers.